Welcome back, everybody. Greg and Derek here for another episode, Friggen Good Politics. Episode 15. We made it to 15
Oh,
episodes, Derek. That's impressive.
we're almost a legitimate podcast now, Greg.
We're so close. We'll be there
So
soon.
20 episodes is apparently what you need to like, hey, you're not going to quit. So I've
Yeah.
started a podcast before and did like 3 episodes. So this is going much better and enjoying it with you. And we're going to start and talking off. It's like, hey, we've done 15 episodes. What's our shtick? What are
Yeah.
we all about? And in my opinion, it's making politics enjoyable,
Yes.
making it fun for you. And thank you to all the people that are sending me emails and LinkedIn messages and texts and say, "Hey, really enjoying it. You guys have some good banter going back and forth." That's what we want to hear. We want to inform you about politics, educate you on how to have public influence, all that good stuff. But we also want to have fun and
Yeah.
use sports analogies. It's typically a very serious, divisive type of topic, politics, but it doesn't have to be. You can
No.
be a good person that just enjoys talking about this, recognizing that you have biases that we all do, but kind of making fun of
Yeah.
them and enjoying talking about it. So that's what we're all about. So if you like that, great. We're gonna keep doing it. If you don't, sorry, I guess. But
Yeah.
I hope you like it. I think you do. I think you do.
Yeah. You came to the wrong place if you don't. So get the
Yeah,
heck out of here.
if you want super serious bias politics, you can do that. There's lots of podcasts for that, but we wanted to be
Yeah.
different and have fun. And like, here's the other thing too. I get frustrated when I listen to political podcasts and people are clearly biased and they
Yes.
don't recognize it. And it ticks me off because they're clearly pushing an agenda, but they don't tell you what the agenda is. We're going to tell you our agenda.
Yep. 100%.
Um, and I guess we're telling you to you right now, but we want to be good people in the political arena. We want to have public influence. We want more good people to have public influence, and I enjoy it. I enjoy my job. I enjoy being able to work with clients and lots of different people and having this podcast and have some level of public influence. We actually have a lot in different governments
Yeah.
and various advocacy groups across the country, and I take it as a huge responsibility, and it's just a great time. It's purposeful, it's meaningful. So I don't know where I'm going with this, vision casting too much about the podcast, but I just wanted to let everybody know that's what we're all about, just so we're clear.
To distill it down, if I can, Derek, two
Please.
points. We're not like the other girls, and we have noblesse oblige about the way that we treat politics. We treat it very seriously and don't want to play. We don't want to play like unnecessarily dirty just for the fun of it, simply because we'd get more clicks.
Well, exactly. Yeah, like that. You're right. That's the other point I was going to bring up is it annoys me when people light their hair on fire to try to get clicks. And it works, to be honest, being like, can you believe what Mark Carney did? He's the devil incarnate, or Pierre Poilievre's the devil, and all this stuff. And I'm like, maybe it's just me being like involved in politics for too many years that I'm just like jaded by all that clickbaity stuff. I can't
Yeah,
do it. I don't want to do it. This podcast is not for people that want clickbait. It's for people that want to get informed and enjoy and have more public influence and do it in a smart, non-clickbaity way.
100%. I
All
fully
right,
agree.
we have a lot to talk about here, Greg, today. So we
Yeah,
better
let's
get
dive
rocking.
in. All right, play number one: throne speech and early Carney government rankings. Derek, I'll let you have
Ooh.
the first stab.
First stab. Okay, no, let's have you at the first stab with what did you
Okay.
think of the king coming? Like you're a huge fan of the monarchy.
I don't know
Greg,
if it was very like apparent by my
yeah,
background and
Greg's
my
biased
tea
towards the
mug
monarch.
here.
Greg's
I
biased
loved
towards
it.
the monarchy. Speaking of biases,
Yeah.
so tell us about what you thought of the king. I thought it was great too. I'm like kind of like whatever on the monarchy. I like them. I'm not like enthralled with them, like whatever. But I know you're a big fan. So tell me, how did it feel, Greg? What did you
Oh,
think?
how did it feel? I'm like that guy, getting like that guy in the meme where he's standing at the podium ready to spill everything. Yeah,
Get on
yeah,
your
no, it was
soapbox here.
I got my soapbox. No, it was fantastic. I was really glad that he was able to make the time to come, especially considering he's currently like in treatment for cancer. And he's quite, he's not exactly a spring chicken anymore. Which he's open about, like
Mhm.
he jokes about that all the time. So I was very thankful for him to come and to take the time to sort of help express a little bit of Canadian independence. I know for a while it was to give some education. A lot of people for a while were like, "Well, how come the king should say something? He should tell Donald Trump to frig off." Well, first of all, he can't just do that. The king doesn't. That's not how the king operates. Number two, the king, in the way that the constitutional system works, he speaks the things that his government basically tells him to do in terms of actual words. The king can do all kinds of symbolic things, like right after a lot of this started with the 51st state thing, the king wore a bunch of his Canadian war medals. He gifted a sword to the leader of the Senate,
Mm.
and a few other symbolic gestures. But in terms of the things that he can say, he can basically only say what the government, his own government asks him to do.
He's not a
And
politician. He's not an elected
no,
official. It's
yeah,
not
and
like kings of old, where it's just like you run the show and you're the legislator and executive
yeah,
branch. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, it's even for a long, like, it's not even like it's been that way actually for quite some time, where there's been
Yeah.
like the king has had reduced powers for quite a number of centuries here. And in the modern context, especially the modern Canadian context, the king has all of the authority, but he has no power to use it. And that's kind of how our system works. The idea being to kind of take away the fame aspect that comes with politics from politicians themselves and place it in and on a person who can't use it for his own good, so
Mm,
to speak. He can only use it for the national good,
right.
to elevate the stature of the country. So anyway, all that to be said, I was very happy he came. It was awesome. I think it should happen basically anytime there's a new government. I think it would be
It's a
great for
good
the
idea.
king, even if it's just a whistle stop where he comes like he did this
Yeah.
most recent time, just hops off the plane, a couple hours, doing some tours, glad handing some people. Everyone loved it. Planted a tree, dropped the hockey puck, and then
It's
reads the
cool.
speech from the throne, and then he has to go home because he's the head of state of, I believe, 14 total countries, including us. Obviously, the
Right.
UK being the number one everyone knows about, but he's
Right.
us and New Zealand and Australia and several other countries in between. So
Right.
anyway, it was great. I thought it was a great sort of way for, yeah, because we're coming through the era of Trudeau's post-national state nonsense. And
Mhm.
so I think this is a great way for us to not I don't want to say reinvent, but like reinvigorate Canadian nationalism in a healthy way.
I agree. Yeah.
And it because for a long time Canadian nationalism was like our healthcare system, folks, golly gee, isn't that great? And like ketchup chips and stuff like that is like way downstream of what
I
should
agree.
actually be
Yeah,
our Canadian
for sure.
nationalism. And the king, like our military, our history, our cultural icons, like those things should be number one. And
Yeah.
so this was a way for us to be sort of begin that process. And if it happened to, it was Mr. Carney, who I disagree with politically doing it, but I give him all the props in the world for doing it and using a little bit of that noblesse oblige that he has, being a sort of global figure who's glad-handed with the king before, to use that influence to get him to come here, or at least ask him to come here and to do this. So
It was a good way to assert our sovereignty, with the whole
yes,
51st state thing. I liked it. I thought it was a good gesture, and I agree we could
100%.
do it more often. And just so people know, like a speech from the throne is a fairly big deal. It's somewhat symbolic, but it is what is done at the opening of a new parliament. So it is the
Hmm.
45th Parliament of Canada, which is crazy. There's only been 45, but I guess they last,
They
you know,
last a while.
a while, right? So, opening of parliament, and it's basically the government's agenda. So when I
Yes.
looked at this agenda, I thought Carney was going to do a bit of a left wing pivot. Uh, so it's like he had a right wing pivot after he became leader, and then he kind of went to the left, started to sort of poo poo the idea of nation building projects in the economy and pipelines, and then when the cabinet got appointed, Stephen Guilbeault and others were saying we don't need any more pipelines, we don't need any of this conventional energy sort of thing, and I was like, oh boy, here we go
Here
again.
we go. Yeah.
Great, great. And then I saw the throne speech, and I'm like, this is actually an economic throne speech.
Yeah.
It is very different from past Trudeau throne speeches. Now, again, some of this is symbolic, but this does resonate throughout government. Like it is kind of the marching orders for your cabinet and the parliament overall. So I thought it was kind of good, and I thought I'd bring out something from John Iveson, who I don't agree with everything, but I thought he was bang on here. And I'll just maybe share my screen because I thought it was very smart what he said here because he did a contrast between what Trudeau throne speeches had and what this throne speech had. So this is him in the National Post. So he basically it was a fundamentally different approach to governing is what they said they were going to do in this throne speech. What the king read, focusing on 7 priorities: new economic and security relationship with the U.S. Good, we all kind of like that. Moving
Yeah.
barriers to interprovincial trade. Good, we should have done that
Thumbs
years
up.
ago. Thumbs up. Bringing down costs for Canadians, making housing affordable. So the affordability
Boo. Yeah.
stuff.
Boo. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who wants
Who
that?
wants that?
Boomers
Yeah.
don't want that. So boomers who voted Liberal don't want that. Protecting Canadian sovereignty by strengthening the armed forces. So I'm like, oh, cool, that's good. And reducing levels of immigration to sustainable levels and spending less on government operations. So I'm like, those are pretty good priorities. Like, those are like that sounds like conservative priorities, to be honest.
Well, in
So
the same way that a lot of his campaign basically stole from the Conservative Party, like
exactly.
he's kind of continuing this tradition in the throne speech.
Yes. Yeah. So it's
But
like it's yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the real rub, and in the same way that we talked about this during the election, now that we've gone through it and we've got this new government, the rub will come into play where, like, okay, he's sort of speaking these nominally conservative things that we all kind of are agreeing with. Like, this is all good. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear it. Will this actually manifest? Like, will he be able to? Because right now his big barrier, his own big barrier, is his coalition. He's
Yeah,
holding on to a
exactly.
lot of hardcore left wing progressives. He's got a lot of
Mhm.
radical progressives like Ebo and others in, and the new environment minister, I forget her name, Daberson, whatever her name is, in
Yeah.
his
Yeah,
cabinet
yeah.
now. So like he's got some pretty hardcore left wing voices that he's going to have to sort of fight with or through, or whatever you want to say, to get this agenda, from paper, from words into action. And so
Mhm.
we'll have to wait and see how he does that. He's got up to theoretically 4 years to enact this. I imagine we'll have an election before then.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we'll see what happens.
Yep, for sure. And I have more on that in a bit. I just want to,
Yeah,
I love this contrast between the Trudeau government's 2021 throne speech, which talked about government mandated vaccines, fighting climate change by capping oil and gas emissions, increasing the carbon tax, mandating the sale of electric vehicles, and gun control. And then this was a quote from the Trudeau throne speech. Equity, justice, and diversity are the means and ends of living together. Fighting systemic racism, sexism, discrimination, misconduct, and abuse, including in our core institutions, will remain a priority. This is the moment to fight for a more secure and equitable world. And so there's a little bit of like climate change stuff and whatnot in the throne speech, but very little. One thing that wasn't there is zero mentions of oil and gas and pipelines. So
yeah. He
that's
what did he use? Conventional energy, I believe, is the term that they're using, but they
right.
won't actually enunciate what that means. Like, what does that mean, guys? Is that natural gas and oil, or do you mean like
Yeah.
the new conventional energy of solar and wind, like or dams or
Exactly.
hydropower, I should say.
Yeah.
So it remains to be
So
seen. But that is quite a contrast. Holy
it's
smokes!
that's a giant contrast. So I'm like, I'm at least hopeful for, again, we all know I didn't support Mark Carney, but I'm like, I'm supporting him in the fact if he does good stuff, I will be excited for the country, and I
Yes.
will support good policy. So I think what you're saying is instead of show me the money, show me the policy. Show,
Yeah, yeah. Show
show me
me
some.
the action. Show me the
Show,
pipeline.
show me the policy. So, and I was going to bring this up because this is related to the throne speech. Some policies sort of came down today. And so I was like, hey, we should probably talk about this. So, a good friend of ours that we want on the podcast soon, we were talking about this earlier, Heather Exner Pirate, she tweeted this. New legislation coming that contains measures to fast track significant infrastructure projects through upfront regulatory approvals and includes a framework to remove federal barriers to interprovincial trade. Carney's going to brief the premiers on that. And if you read the story, it talks about what they were sort of the new energy minister, who I like, um,
Yeah.
is promising 2 year approvals rather than the ungodly amount of years that it takes right now that no
Yeah.
one would ever want to invest
10
in
or more
Canada.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is good. This is potentially good policy. We'll see what happens with it. Like you said, it's like there's gonna be fights about this between the NDP, the Bloc, Indigenous
Yeah.
activists in different areas that get paid for by U.S. lobby groups and all sorts of things. There will be problems, but at least he's leading here, and this seems to be a positive step forward. So I'm like, am I supporting Carney? No, but kind of like I don't know. It's like if he can get this done and so he's going to go like this is also the olive branch that I think the West needs. We'll talk about Alberta
Yes.
separatism
Yeah.
and stuff in a bit, but this is good. He's going to go to Saskatoon, right in the heart of the West, meet with the premiers, talk about all this, and I'm like, this seems like a serious government for the economy, and I've been begging for this for years.
Yeah.
Well, a decade essentially. Harper I thought was great in many ways. So it's like finally, like the liberals have just not been this for so long, and I'm glad that they're doing this. So again, I'm not trying to like swoon over Carney here. That's not my intention, but I'm like, this is a good play. It's like for the country, it is good.
Yeah.
Like what Trudeau was doing, focusing on wokeness and systemic discrimination and all
Toxic.
this,
Absolutely
it was
toxic.
and like just becoming this post-national state. I'm just like, this is not who we are as Canadians. Like, let's just screw over all of our traditions. Like even, I know the passport thing is kind of dumb. Like
Oh, the
it's
new
not,
passports are garbage. I
well,
hate
they're
them. They need
garbage,
to
but I'm like,
return.
I'm like, I get it. It's not the most important thing. It's not impacting my pocketbook or whatever. But this symbolism of like, hey, Terry Fox, go take a hike. We don't care about you anymore.
Yeah.
hey, Vimy Ridge, screw you. Our
Bye
like it's
bye. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, why are we eliminating all these amazing things from our history? And so these symbolic things matter to a country, in my opinion. I think we'll talk about that
Yes.
a little bit later too. So I'm not going to get too deep into that. What I do want to mention is, so I think there's some good stuff coming here. What I thought was absolutely hilarious, and I'm going to stop, is Stephen Gabot, because I got to make sure I can share with the sound so the people not on YouTube can see this. So,
While
uh,
you're doing that, Derek, I just want to give some context too.
sure,
Like,
please.
so the year is 20, it's the year of our Lord 2015, like 10-ish years
Yes.
ago when Stephen Harper was in the waning days of his government. Like, he was like begging the Canadian people to be on board with things like oil and gas and national
Yeah.
building projects and these, wet east west energy corridors and things like that.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely crapped on by the liberals and a lot of people in the media and the activists all over the place. And he
Yep.
was able to get nowhere. Even some of the premiers, like kudos to
Yeah.
Brad Wall, was the only premier at the time
You're
fighting
right.
against the carbon tax. Now that was after Trudeau had won. But
Yeah.
at that point, there was very little cross-national consensus for these kinds of things. So
You're right.
fast forward 10 years, and now we've got the liberal prime minister advocating for at least nominally advocating for things that Stephen Harper was trying to get done. That's quite
Mhm.
a tidal shift in public sentiment and like what now
Yeah.
provides political capital to parties. So it's quite a change, and
You're
I'm
right.
very
And
happy to see it.
we talk about this a lot as the Overton window, the idea that
Yes.
you shift the acceptance of public policy to a particular side of the spectrum over time
Yeah.
through good advocacy. And this is where people commented to me offline about this, but they're like, "Thank you for saying this about Pierre Poilievre, because even though we
Yeah.
lost and we're very sad about that, he shifted the nation big
Yeah.
time over to where it needed
A
to be,
hundred
which is a
percent.
focus on the economy, affordability, and some of our national institutions, strengthening them, our armed forces, trade, trade barriers. It's like Carney has to do that. And so
Yes. Yeah.
and
Let's
the
be very
biggest thing
clear
is
about that. Yeah.
guys like Stephen Gabot, who have been horrendous for the West, Alberta separatism, he's been told to shut the F up, is what's happened here.
Yeah,
And
like a
and
hundred percent. Carney called him in and told him probably almost that exact thing. Yeah.
it's yeah, because he's like, hey, I'm the boss now, and this is what the country needs. And you know what? Carney, it's just so hard because he seemed like a left-wing radical activist for most of the last
He
10
has
to
been
15 years.
all up
He
until
has
six
been.
months ago.
Right. And so it's like, where did this change? And it's like, so who is this Carney guy? I think Carney is a chameleon,
Yeah.
is my take on him, is that he does whatever he needs to do to win.
Yeah.
And a lot of business people like him because he made the money on Brookfield. And what was popular for a long time was being a left-wing radical. Now it's not popular, so he's not doing it anymore. So now he's like,
Yeah.
I'm a right-wing economy guy. So again, this is this is where conservatives we fall down because we're so darn principled and we always just stay the same.
Yeah.
And we almost have to wait to get elected for the country to shift in that way. But then all those liberals will come over and pretend to be conservatives. But like I think this is more to Carney's core than the left wing radicalism is, and he's just allowed to
Yes.
be because he's a guy that likes to make money. Like I think he
Yeah.
likes economic growth and he knows the benefits of it because he's a business guy. So anyways, that's interesting. But this from Guibault from just a few weeks ago saying we don't need any more pipelines, oil's done, whatever.
Yeah.
This is what he said when he's asked.
Climate change. There were two mentions of climate change and commitments to continue moving forward on nature protection. As you will recall, during the election campaign, we committed to create 10 new national parks, 10 new marine conservation area, 15 new urban parks, and accelerate our achievement of our goals to protect 30% of our lands and waters by
How much
2030.
more conventional energy does Canada need? That was in the throne speech. How conventional energy? How much more conventional energy does Canada need?
I'm not the energy minister. I'm not responsible. I'm responsible for nature.
I like how he just gets like pushed aside there right at the end. Like, get moving, come on, we gotta go.
Yep. Yeah. So what the reporters were trying to do is basically like try to find a riff in the Liberal Party to be like, hey,
Yeah.
you're a left-wing radical environmental guy. Do you think there was enough on climate change and whatever here? And he's like, well, we mentioned it a couple times and we're going to like build some parks and plant some trees, which
Yeah.
is drastically different from the past where he's like, no new pipelines, emissions cap, Bill
Shut it
C-69,
all down. Yeah.
shut everything down, oil is dead, Elizabeth May type stuff going on. And so now it's not, oh, I'm not the energy minister. I have no opinions on this. Well, so the gag order on his radical ministers, it has been issued. So
Yes.
you can argue, is this good or bad? It's very good for the country.
It's very good for the country. Yeah.
Guibo has had more than enough influence over the past 10 years. Go away, please.
Yeah.
Go do whatever small thing you need to do to be a good cabinet minister. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, Derek, where you're talking about, are we praising Carney? We're praising Carney in the sense that like our country is moving back toward a healthier dynamic. Like as I said under Trudeau, like things were so unbelievably toxic. And it wasn't just the
Mhm.
politics, it was also the media also plays a huge role in that where they'll go after anyone who says anything controversial and then,
Yeah.
it turn it into a whole game. So like I'm happy to see we're at the point where like rather than discussing like should we shut the economy of like our entire western half of the country down versus, not doing that versus now we're talking about okay how much of this are we going to have
Yeah.
now that's the discuss and also so kudos to Pierre Poilievre for shifting the Overton window across the entire country like we've had
Big time.
multiple even provincial elections now like in New Brunswick and especially in BC like both of those elections those parties had to basically the left-wing parties in those elections had to nearly abandon their entire progressive agenda and
Mhm.
backtrack to the point of becoming quasi-conservative parties just to stay alive
Yeah.
because the country is now moving like the Overton window has shifted so heavily.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like a lot of the conservative, like sort of activist groups, I think of things like Modern Miracle Network, which has done a ton of work, yeoman's work on this, where trying to shift public opinion away from oil and gas is bad to no, this is actually a good thing. It's good for Canada. It's good for the environment even, and it's good for the global global infrastructure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
things like displacing Russian oil and buying Canadian oil instead, that kind of stuff. So
Totally.
it's really nice to see that we're shifting this. So I'm overall happy about it. And
Yeah.
frankly, like if Carney, he's only got a minority government. We saw the one Terra Nova and the Peninsula's flipped there 2 weekend or last weekend, 2 weekends ago, whatever it was. So he's confirmed, and
Mhm.
and none of it was confirmed and all that stuff. So he's got a confirmed minority government now. So that means it could fall at any moment. And if Pierre does in fact become prime minister, if Carney's already teed up a lot of these things, it will
Right.
be so much easier for Pierre to take over and
Yeah.
continue on, with even theoretically more willpower to get it done, rather than having to sort of start over from scratch if we
Yeah.
continue down the progressive agenda. So I'm overall I'm a happy camper. So
That's a really great point, Greg. And we talked about that with Paul Merriman, a cabinet minister. Of when you're cabinet, it's like it takes a
yeah,
while to get these things moving. It's like people think it's like a politician just makes a decision and then it all happens and works. It's like no, like even when you think of trying to build national infrastructure, pipelines or whatever, like these are years and years and years in the making. And policy
yeah,
making takes years too. It's like, okay, you gotta propose the legislation and there's a whole process to go through of readings and passing, and then you got to do the regs and then it's got to actually be implemented throughout the whole system. Then you got to get investors and it's a long, and then you got to build the thing, right, and get the approval.
yeah.
So
And you got to
um
work with the provincial and the municipal and all across the entire country or wherever, whichever
yeah.
jurisdictions you're in. Like it can be a nightmare. So it
and
takes its
and
time.
and so a lot of this stuff may not actually really be beneficial for 5 to 15 years from now is the reality. There'll be more investment early on or whatever, but the big positive benefits of it are not quite there. So it's actually funny if I can use a Star Wars analogy on this.
Oh,
I
please.
watched this great show called Andor, which
Fantastic
so
show.
good. So
So
Luthen
good.
Rael has this amazing speech where he has this like operative in the I was going to say the liberal government, the the empire. Freudian slip there. Uh,
Yeah.
so in the empire, and he's like, "What have you given up, Luthen?" And Luthen's this character that like kind of starts the rebellion, and he's like, "Everything." He's like, "I'm going to burn my
I
life
burned
for
my
the people."
life for a sunrise I'll never see.
Exactly. That's the line I was thinking of when it's like this. It's kind of like this, where it's like you're starting a thing, and it's like a lot of the people that are doing the work right now, you're not really going to see the benefit until maybe they're
Yeah.
retired or something. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's sending the country in a good direction, and it's like, yes, good,
Yeah.
finally. It's
Well,
like
and
it's
you
been
need to have cross-partisan like cooperation of some kind to be able to even lay the soil to grow these things in the first place. So,
And
you
to use
know,
another analogy here, we didn't feel the horrible effects of Trudeau's bad economic policy until about like what, year 7 or 8 or 9 of his mandate, where all of a
probably yeah,
sudden,
at least it was at least after the first 4 to 5 years.
yeah, so like it took a while for the economy to get horrible, right? Because like Harper did a pretty good job of like really getting things going, and like
Yes,
our
yeah,
deficit, our spending was under control, and we had smart economic policy. Like there was some stuff that people wish he would have done more of. I get that, whatever.
sure.
But the country wasn't there. Like Harper pushed it, but it's like I think it's the same thing. It's like it's the stuff that's happening right now isn't really. We're not going to see a huge boost from it or a boon from it until 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And so that sucks. Like I wish we could just like snap our fingers and whatever, but it's not how life works and it's not how business and economies work. So that's fine. But I think if as long as we're on a better path, because we can't keep going the way we're going. Like,
Yeah.
we've done campaigns on this with different clients, but it's like our real GDP is or our per capita GDP is among the worst in the known world. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like it's among 30 countries or whatever. It's the
I don't know
worst.
why I laughed at that. It's a terrible, it's a terrible
It's a
thing. It's
terrible
just like
stat.
it's how is this? How did this
I
happen?
know. And so like some people in Canada are totally fine. Like I'm not like, I'm not broke or whatever, but like I just know a lot of people that are really struggling, and it's like
Same.
we really need to fix this, It's it sucks. And so it's like, I'm thinking if I was, back in the day when I was a university student and broke and trying to like buy a house or whatever, how hard it would have been. It's like it would really suck. And so I'm glad I'm not that at stage anymore, but yeah, so we need to fix all this good stuff, and I hope we do, and the country keeps going in this direction.
Speaking of, we can't keep going in the same direction we've been going. Let's go to our second play, Alberta.
Oh,
The honeymoon, the polling, at least provincially, the honeymoon, the polling honeymoon
yeah.
for Danielle Smith continues, and it not only endures but grows for her. The latest Janet Brown poll, and Janet
Hmm.
Brown, for those maybe a lot of people in Alberta know who she is. She's probably the best pollster in Alberta. At
Well
least I
respected.
would feel comfortable. Yeah, she's very well respected.
Yeah.
And she's been the most accurate on like the last several elections, and she's done some polling elsewhere, I believe, on specific questions. I don't know if she does actual like government legislative polling and that. But anyway, she gave the UCP what 52, the NDP 38. So that's quite
Yeah.
a
It's a
shift from
big
the last
shift.
election,
Yeah.
+6 -6.
Yeah.
And she also asked about separation. And
Hmm.
unlike a lot of the other polling firms, put it at what, under 30? I believe it was 28% who would be
Right.
interested. Now, granted, she also gave a very, very specific question. She asked, her question was very good because a lot of the other ones were like, do you think Alberta should be more independent? Well, okay, well, like, yeah,
Yes.
probably a lot of people agree with that, but that's not
Yeah.
exactly what this referendum that I don't want to use the term agitators because that's maybe a little too biased or too torqued of a term, but those individuals who are very interested in separation,
Mhm.
that's not the question they're asking. So
Yeah.
anyway, Derek,
Yeah.
you're the resident Albertan. I'll hand it over to you to continue.
Sure. So, she's halfway through her mandate, Premier Smith here, and so it's been 2 years, and the polling numbers are better. So she's
Yeah.
actually gaining ground, which is quite impressive. And this is her quote: "We haven't seen a honeymoon last this long for a politician since the Ralph Klein days."
Wow.
And so that's a huge statement. Like Ralph Klein is a legend here, right? Like he's
Yeah.
one of the most popular guys ever. And so I had a tweet that not many people responded to, but basically I said, what did I say here? There it is. Her political opponents won't admit it, but Premier Smith has a humble strength that's a good balance of listening to people and making adjustments while still taking principled policy stands. It's a
Yeah.
recipe for longevity as a head of government. And so if I could expand on that a bit and why I think she's successful, is she really does listen to people. Like after
Yeah.
she won the leadership, it was a tough leadership election. It was tough for the party because people were thinking it was the old Danielle Smith that was too swayed by things, was too extreme on things, and just wasn't a good leader. And so, but I think she made a good decision right away to bring in Rebecca Schultz and Brian Jean and Rajan
Yes.
Swanee and a bunch of different people that were her opponents. Say, hey, come into cabinet, come be my inner circle, and they
Yeah.
they kind of are, and that helps because that's kind of like all elements of the party, and she listens to them and she listens to other people too.
Yeah.
She, there's sort of a bad branding of her in the past as she would be swayed by too many things too quickly. I think she's balanced that out quite a bit. And she makes adjustments where she needs to, but she also
Yeah.
has a clear vision of where she wants Alberta to go, takes strong stands on things. And even if you disagree with her, like some people don't like her, the way she's, doing things in healthcare, but you can't fault her for trying really stinking hard and being very
Yeah.
articulate on the health file.
And
Or
open about what she's doing. She's
for
at
sure.
least from an Eastern perspective, it seems like she's being transparent about it.
She really is. She's like we're reforming things, we're changing things, and she's been talking about healthcare reform for 20 years. So
Yeah.
this should not come as a surprise to people.
Yeah.
And now she has the power and the ability to do it. And the healthcare system in Canada, you talked about it earlier. It's like our national identity was we had public healthcare. Well, lots of countries have public healthcare, but their systems are way better than ours.
Yeah.
Our system, everybody, sucks.
Sucks. In case anyone didn't get the message.
To balance it out, yes, it's good in some ways. If you have a major emergency, the
Yes.
system is there for you. But it's not cost effective. We pay through the nose for it. It is not free. Our healthcare is incredibly expensive and costing you a cajillion dollars. Have
It's
you
like
looked at your
half of all provincial spending in Ontario is healthcare
Yes.
spending.
That's like every
That's
province.
nuts. That's
And that's
nuts.
and then the feds kick in a ton of money too.
Yeah.
And not everything's covered. Like people forget it's like, oh, all of our healthcare is free. No, our healthcare is not entirely free. Some stuff is it's not free. Nothing's free, people.
It's
Okay.
single payer. You pay for it.
Yes.
Don't get me started. I don't
So
get you
anyways,
started either. You already got
clearly
started.
we're here's the cultural thing of Canada that ticks me off is
Yes.
we just like public health care, it's a god in Canada and look how amazing this is and let's worship public health care. Actually, I was going to tweet about this too. It ticked me off because Naheed Nenshi, who I'm going to talk about in a bit, who I think sucks as a leader, if I can be so bold about this.
The polling would agree with you.
The polling would agree. I think he has potential, but overall he sucks. The NDP was coming out and saying we're going to protect public health care. NDP people, socialists, stop talking about protecting healthcare. Talk about reforming it. It is not
Yes.
good and sustainable as it is right now.
No.
Fix healthcare. That's what we need. We don't need you grandstanding and worshiping at the feet of the public healthcare system. Yes, we should ensure a single payer in
Sure.
the vast majority of
100%.
situations, but our healthcare system is not effective, and there's so many other models that do it better than we do it.
Yes.
Give your head a shake. Read a book, like read an essay on
Go
healthcare.
outside, touch some grass,
Like,
please.
yeah, it's just they get stuck in this, and it's so predictable and so frustrating because it's bad policy. So it's like you can say Derek and Greg are biased on all these things, and it's like we are blah blah blah. But I'm like I'm also biased towards good policy that makes me
Yeah.
that gets me better health outcomes for my family. Like, have you had a family member that's had to wait and emerge for 12 hours?
I had to
Probably.
do it. I had to do it a little
Yeah.
while ago. It was like till midnight. We got there at like 6. And it
It
was like for a
really
concussion. It wasn't for like, it was for my daughter. Now, thankfully, she was fine. But like, holy smokes,
It
it was
really,
crazy.
really sucks. And we are smarter than this. This is what I'm mad
Yes.
about. We are smarter
Yeah, we
than
have the ideas. Like,
like props to Tommy Douglas who started and all that good stuff. Great.
thank you.
Can we now move on and be like, how do we make this thing way better than it is? Because we can make it way better with the amount of dough we're spending on this thing. There's gotta be ways to make it better. It's just like the NDP's like, don't do anything. Like just give it more money. And it's like that hasn't worked. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I'll tell you why. Like, well, you know this, Derek. I'm telling the audience why the NDP continues to say that. It's because unfortunately, too many voters, and I'll maybe lean into one particular kind of voter, older, more progressive,
Mhm.
thinks that our only options are the current state of things and America.
Correct.
And
Yes.
it's so stupid. And every person in healthcare advocacy in this country will tell you that is so stupid.
Mhm.
Stop. There are so many other countries out there that we could model. Australia, literally any European nation, except for the UK. They're in a similar like sucky situation as us.
Mhm.
But like you can have single payer health insurance while also providing like like private delivery of public care is basically the model that Danielle is going for. Doug Ford's actually doing a teeny bit of that here. But it's crazy how much centralized control the hospital systems have. Like they don't want you to do anything outside the hospital. They don't
Yeah.
want you to go like to do your, your diabetes stuff or your lidocaine treatments or anything. Like it's nuts.
Yeah.
Um, like we have the tools and the ideas and the policy. Like it's all written down. It's all been discussed. All the advocates know what would immediately almost help remedy the situation, but we're so stuck in this like
Hmm.
nascent left-wing anti-Americanism that completely prevents us from changing our mind. And people, I need you to start changing your minds, please. Like
Please.
start being open to changing your mind, please.
Yes. Please. Yeah. That's all we ask. Please.
That's
Yeah.
all we ask.
It's ideology. I remember Brad Wall used to say this, and I loved it. And I worked for him and
You work for
helped
Bradwell.
promote. Yeah.
Oh
Have
my
I mentioned
gosh.
that before? Um, People want surgery, not ideology. And
Yes.
so if private surgical clinics gets you more surgery and it's still single payer insurance, what are we doing? Why more?
Yeah.
Please.
Yes.
Like, is this wrecking the system? No, it is not. And in fact, it's actually helping the system because a lot of these private, I'm getting into healthcare reform now, but a lot of these doctors that work in private clinics, they start clinics and they come to Saskatchewan, Alberta because they can start a clinic, but they end up
Yes.
doing surgeries in public hospitals and doing things in the public system as well. But it actually leads to more skilled professionals
Yes.
that we need that are we're desperately in need of them. They're very hard to recruit. And
Yeah.
so let's do all the things that help with healthcare recruitment, people. We need more physicians and surgeons and specialists and nurses and all these things. And so let's make this the most banger healthcare system in the world. And okay, I'm stopping on healthcare now. So
I know. I
back
was going to
to
go down another rabbit hole. So okay, we're
I
shifting back.
we almost need to do it like let's do an episode on healthcare reform. That'd be fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll
So
get the Second Street guys to come on for that one.
for sure. So I'm going to the Premier's dinner tonight in Calgary. It is the
Oh, fancy.
largest
I'm going to
fancy
regular dinner here tonight
with your family.
with my
Um,
beloved family.
It is the largest political dinner in Alberta history.
Oh, really?
And yep, is the plan. I think there's I'll look up the number, but it's slated as that. It was huge last year too. I think
Nice.
I went to one at Edmonton and it was the biggest one Edmonton's ever seen. And so basically this whole like Ralph Klein thing, like Premier Smith has an opportunity to be
Yes.
sort of a legend in Alberta politics
Yeah.
and in the country.
I think
Now
she kind of
here's
already is, like from having
kind of
gone from like the total, and I'm not being mean about this, like from the total defeat that she had,
oh she did. Yeah.
those number of years ago to come back and become like to resurrect the party from theoretical defeat in 2023, or
Yeah.
anyway, whatever year it was. I'm forgetting now the years. But anyway, come back,
That's fine.
win, and then
Yeah.
to boost your polling after that win and to be able to
Mhm.
do all these things, like she's already made a name for herself.
It's huge. I just like if she could get another term after this,
Yes.
and like still stay popular, she'd be for sure a legend. And so like here's the trick though, if we're talking about Alberta separatism, this is a dangerous issue for the country, for
Yeah.
Premier Smith, for everybody. I think the only person that could sort of benefit from this is Nenshi.
Yeah.
If this goes poorly for whatever reason and the base of the UCP gets fractured, that favors the NDP big time. So
Yep.
the balance here for Premier Smith is she has to get some concessions out of the feds to calm this whole thing down. And, if Carney wanted to be a real jerk and really hate the country, he could get rid of a potential political opponent in Premier Smith by agitating Alberta separatism. That would be a play he could use. Now, evil to run that play, but it would be a play he could use because what would happen is he has the power to make Alberta very mad and
Yeah.
potentially cause a constitutional crisis in Canada. Um, I don't think he wants to do that though. Like I'm glad it doesn't seem to be going that direction. Again, we need more time to see show me the policy type stuff. But that's the trick here. So like if separatism kind of gets out of control in Alberta, it could be dangerous for Premier Smith. It's hard to manage that. Her base, I saw some of the polling. It was like 60% of her base would vote for yes to a referendum.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like an independence referendum. I mean, so that's again, not all those people are separatists. Let's be honest here. A
Yeah.
lot of those people just want to put pressure on the feds
Yes.
to get a better deal because they're so frustrated. And so let's be careful of being like they're
Yes.
evil separatists and they hate Canada. No, they actually like Canada. They just want Canada to work properly,
Yeah.
how it's
And
supposed to work.
if I can like defend Alberta here for a second as a person who lives in
Please,
Ontario,
please.
like, look, I disagree to my fellow Easterners. Like, I disagree with Alberta separatism. I think it'd be a bad idea. I think it'd be a bad idea for Saskatchewan too, and I hate the idea of Canada splitting up like that. For the
Mhm.
record, I also hate the idea of Quebec leaving as well for all their foibles, separatist foibles. But like, look, when people we are able to have these disagreements. Can we all stop, like, dear Easterners, and I'm particularly referring to the Laurentian elite here. Please stop
Mhm.
calling these people like morons and idiots and yada 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 yada. Like, I disagree with their ideas. I think some of the ideas are silly or stupid, but like, these people are not stupid. They're just very frustrated. And they've been living in many cases, like a lot of these people, like, they've lost jobs. They've seen family members lose jobs. They've seen crumbling economic opportunities because of like Eastern stupidity from like Laurentian elites who
Yeah.
want to shut all this down when this should be the main economic driver, or at least one of the main economic drivers of our country.
Should be a big.
Like, let's,
It is still today.
yeah.
Um, and sorry, I don't mean to. You were on a good rant there, but what the issue I have is when I read Eastern columnists talk about this stuff, they're like, Alberta's rich. What are they complaining about? They have higher than average incomes and whatever. And it's like it's actually true. That's amazing that they have that with the country that they live in. How
Yes.
held back Alberta's been. Like, imagine if Alberta wasn't held.
Imagine.
It's like it would be like I think there's jealousy, honestly, in the East sometimes. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm throwing this out there, but it's like they're already rich enough. Screw them, you know? Like there's that's sort of like the sense I get when I read these columnists. It's like, what are they complaining about? And it's like, oh yeah, okay, well yeah, maybe they over contribute to the nation and don't get as much back and whatever. You know, but then they sort of like say, well, they don't directly pay into equalization. It's just through federal taxes. Well, yeah, it's because we pay more federal taxes, and then all the payments go to Quebec. Half of the payments go to
Yes.
Quebec.
Yeah.
And Quebec actually holds back their economy so that they get more equalization payments.
Yes. Yeah.
And people don't know this, and it's very frustrating as an Albertan that knows this and looks at this, and you're like, oh, like this is painful. And then like the federal transfers that Quebec gets and all these other places get, it's like, oh my goodness. Like if you actually look at it, you're like, this is completely unfair. Like even if you look at the pension plan issue,
Yeah.
Albertans way over contribute because of their higher average income
Yeah.
to the pension plan. And so they're like, we're going to take this back. And
I
because
think they should. I really think they should.
they would actually take half of the pension money back is how it
Yeah.
should work with the formula. And so it's like, holy crap, one province has done half of the contributions to everyone's pensions. Like that's, so this is where Alberta's like, we contribute a lot. We actually want to contribute more, but you don't let us and you talk
Yes.
us down and you it's like we feel, this is Stockholm syndrome, right? It's like, why are we doing this to ourselves forever? And so that's why some people they just don't believe in Canada that it's ever going to change. And maybe they're right. And so let's just freaking get out of here. Like that's the mentality behind it. And Premier Smith, though, she has to be careful. She can't campaign for the yes side. Like people are like,
No.
what, like some conservatives here campaign for the well, no, she's a premier of a Canadian province. She should advocate for Alberta to have a better deal and a better
Yeah.
situation in Canada. Under
Yeah.
Stephen Harper, there wasn't this issue. Like, yes, there was some issues or whatever, but it's like we were able to grow and get things done. If we just had good federal governments that stopped kicking the crap out of Alberta and the energy sector, this would not be a problem, people. So let like develop nation, like be a country that develops national energy projects and national corridors, and there seems to be momentum for that, which is exciting.
Yes.
So do that, and the separatism thing will go away. I'm serious, like
Yeah.
it will. And,
Yeah.
and so like the steps Carney is making is good, and I think that is actually good for Premier Smith as well. So, and you actually notice this is a Scott Moe thing, but Scott Moe has taken a much more diplomatic tone to the current government.
Yeah.
And it's sort of based on a promise he made after the election to do that and stop being as fighty. And so far, I think it's worked well for him. And it's there's kind of a good cop, bad cop. Like Smith is kind of the bad cop, and but I could see these two premiers getting behind Carney if he's serious about all this stuff. Like if this is more than just fluff and that there's good policy coming. I think the separation thing could settle down really fast, and we're not talking about this in 2 years.
I would love
So
that. Yeah.
we'll see because there's with the changes to the referendum rules in Alberta, there's probably going to be several referendums next year
Yeah.
that are going to be held. But I think what you sort of want is for the country to work very well and for all that to go away.
Yes, that would be
You
the.
know?
I mean, even like to put it into perspective for people, like even the NDP leader in Saskatchewan, Carla Beck.
Yeah.
Now she's very against separatism, but she was like, a little bit crapping on the federal government, saying like it's stop doing this to us, like let us do the things we need to do to
Yeah.
make our province flourish, like leave us alone, which I
Yeah.
appreciated. If you're pissing off the NDP in Saskatchewan, like you've done something wrong.
hmm
If you
hmm
can't get them on side. So
And early stick tap, just because we're here right now, is Wab Canoe, NDP
yeah,
premier. If I can be nice to an NDPer, I kind of like he's doing a pretty good job, man. So like I'm not a Nenshi guy. His arrogance and a lot, I could talk a lot about him for a while, but I won't. But Wab Canoe, it's like seems like a humble guy, earnest guy,
yeah,
and he's talking about the Port of Churchill and
yep,
saying we need this for the country, we need this for Manitoba. Great. That's good for Manitoba. It's good for the nation. It's good to fight against separatism and keeping our country aligned and like because ideally, at the end of the day, we have a really good country here. We do.
yeah,
We just need our policymakers to stop screwing it over.
yeah,
Honestly, like
yeah,
at the end of the day, I'm like, if there's I'll support good policy all day long. It means we
yeah,
can grow economy, have good social safety nets, fix our healthcare. Like that's we're not radicals. Like I'm like, I want good policy that like we can grow businesses and have a good cost of living and build things again and have a good identity as a nation. Like
yeah,
this shouldn't be a tall task. It's just like we got so wrapped up in like identity politics and systemic racism and we need to and like I saw the report today was kind of or not today, it was this week, but it was like a big study on how if Canada exported LNG, we would do immensely more for the
yeah,
fight against climate change than our carbon tax ever did. Like not like
yeah.
immensely more. And I'm like, finally, people are like using logic here. It's like in politics, though, if we're talking about the game a little bit, it's a lot of times it's feelings. It's like, man, it feels good to have a carbon tax. Like I remember hearing that from people. It's like it feels good to pay that extra at the pump. And I'm like, no, like my brain can't handle that. I'm like, this is
No,
not helping. I'm still driving my car. Like I'm not. And the whole electric vehicle thing seems to be kind of blowing up now too. That it does,
completely blowing up, and
you
it's
know.
brutal that it costs like what 50 some odd billions in tax dollars that
Mm,
we gave to these companies who are now saying,
uh,
"Sykes, we're shutting this all
psych.
down." Like we're gonna like GM's
Uh,
shuttering like 300 million in EVs and repurposing it to rebuild more V8 trucks, which is really funny.
hey,
But that's what
that's a
happens when you try and top down economic nonsense. Like rather than using market forces to try
no,
and make changes that you want, like when you try and do these top down radical moves, like it just doesn't work because there's no market for it. There's no
I know.
and you're just going to end up wasting money. So
Lots of it. And not just money, your money. Our
yeah,
taxes are very high in Canada. And it's like
yeah,
as a business leader now, as a business owner, I guess, I see how much businesses pay in taxes. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, like I just, it was tax season, right? April.
yeah.
And so it's like you kind of save up for the taxes in the business and you give payments or whatever. And I was like, holy cow, did I transfer a lot of money to the various governments? And I'm like, and that's on top of the taxes I pay every month on payroll. That's on
Yeah,
top of the personal taxes I pay,
yeah.
the PSTs, the GSTs,
Sales
all
taxes, yeah.
like everything else that's built into the system throughout based on everything I pay for. I'm like, whoo, it's like we are so overtaxed, and that's why business owners have a hard time being socialists because they're just
Yeah.
like they see the amount of money they pay, and they're like, oh my god, like this is really killing me. Like
Yeah.
I'm not again, I'm not a radical. Like I don't think anyone thinks I am, but I'm like I don't mind paying a good amount of tax. I'm just the level that we're at is like redonkulous, and we're just
It's
being
stupid.
it's very bad. Like, when you go to Ontario too, like, at least in Alberta we have no PST, but you can go there and what's your HST? What
The
percent
total
is it?
combined is 13%. We are Ontario is the most highly taxed subnational jurisdiction in North America.
Like,
And
yeah,
like California and New York and those other like hard left M states, like it's
it's like you feel
stupid.
it. You feel it when you buy stuff there. I'm like, oh man, this adds up
Yeah.
real stinking
I
fast.
remember when I lived in Alberta for a year, and the first time I bought something, and I was like, "Oh wow, this thing that I bought was like nearly exactly what it said on the shelf. That's
I
crazy. What is this?"
the price is almost close to the price. This is wild.
Yeah,
So and anyway, okay. So the segue if we're talking about the auto sector and whatever goes great into our next play. So why don't you segue into our next play
Yeah,
there,
all
Greg?
right. Next play number three is U.S. activist judges, tariffs being canceled, I guess, and branches of government. So to give
Okay.
like a very like light overview of this, because Derek and I barely pay attention to American politics anymore, but was it today or yesterday? I think it was this morning. A
Yesterday.
U.S.
Yesterday.
judge,
Yeah.
yesterday, a U.S. judge of some level, I'm not sure, basically like nullified or said that Trump's Liberation Day tariffs against other nations were illegal.
Yes.
A minor point of context in the American system, and we're going to dive into a little bit more of this in terms of the branches of government, but in the U.S.
Nerdy,
system,
nerdy stuff.
nerdy stuff. Tariffs are actually supposed to be done by Congress.
Yeah.
Congress is supposed to vote on what tariffs can and can't be done. It's not the president's job. However, the U.S. has had lots of emergency legislation crafted over the last 25 years, and there's emergency legislation that lets the president issue tariffs in the event of an emergency. And what was the emergency that he declared was the fentanyl coming in from Canada, I guess, emergency. And that's how he justified slapping these tariffs on us and getting around the USMCA agreement and various
Mhm.
other agreements that he's made with other nations. And so anyway, this judge, I guess, said it was illegal. But Trump really hasn't cared about what judges have said. And
No.
so it sounds like he's just going to kind of fly over it and do whatever he wants.
Yeah. So they basically said his authority under the IEEPA, which I think is the emergency
That's
legislation.
the emergency legislation. Yeah.
Yeah, that he's doing the tariffs through. It's not an emergency. You can't bypass Congress to set trade policy, and these tariffs are unconstitutional and void. So
Yeah.
basically, he overstepped his executive powers on this issues, and like there was like a record amount of exclamation marks in this judge's. And I think this was a Trump appointed judge too. So people are
Oh,
like,
really? Interesting.
yeah, it's actually hard for because like what the Republicans, their play here is going to say, oh, activist judges, they're evil, screw you with politicians, all that sort of thing. So that's interesting. But what we wanted to talk about, not so much about this issue. Like, I guess it's interesting for Canadians because like, are these tariffs all gone now? Like, that's
Yeah.
still
What
unclear.
is genuinely gonna happen? Is Trump just gonna
Yeah.
say, too bad? Like the executive branch in America has made itself so top heavy
Yes.
and given
Yes.
itself, like Congress and the executive branch itself has given itself so many power. Okay, to go back to the
Mhm.
Star Wars
Yeah.
references, like in episodes 2 and 3, the Supreme Chancellor gives himself all these emergency powers,
Right.
starting with it begins with Jar Jar Binks, Risa given the emergency power to the Chancellor, and
That's
then
a great impression. I love that.
and then it goes from there. And so the America has basically done the same thing where they've given the president all these crazy powers,
Mhm.
especially in the wake of 9/11. On 9/11 is definitely what really kicked it all off.
Right. Right.
And really, jazzed it up. And it was after 9/11 that we saw presidents basically starting to rule by, executive order after executive order.
Yeah.
Um, and now we've got to the point where, that's basically all Trump's done. There's been very few actual laws done in Congress, like actual legislation passed, because he set his
Mhm.
entire agenda through executive order. So,
Totally. So
yeah.
yeah, so basically like the Republicans are saying this is a judicial coup, which means the judiciary is taken over and the politicians don't matter anymore. And I like, if I'm being nice to Republicans, which I'm not all the time because I think they've gone off the deep end in a lot of ways recently.
A lot of ways, yeah.
But I still like them in some ways, whatever.
Yeah.
This is their play, but I think I'm more on the side of this is a good check and a balance. And the judiciary isn't saying you can't do this. They're saying you need Congress to do this for you.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And which
And
is
so,
exactly how it's supposed to be. Like just
yeah.
if you have a majority in the House, like go and do this then.
Yeah. Oh, and so the other, like, if I'm being nice to Republicans, they're basically saying, well, we were elected to take strong action and change a lot of
Yeah.
things and whatever. And so they're like, the judiciary is preventing us from doing this. But also, that's kind of their job. And like, I know they're mad about this, and fair enough. But if this was a left wing, super socialist president doing something similar that they didn't like, they'd be very thankful that the
Yeah.
judicial branch of government was there to be a check and a balance here and to say not that you can't do this, it's just the way you're doing it is illegal and go through Congress. That's
Yes.
why Congress is there. The president
Yeah.
can't do everything. And so the United States was not set up to be a dictatorship. The president has incredible powers, but it's not to be a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And same thing in Canada too. Our prime minister and the PMO has a ton of powers. And I think there should be a really strong executive branch, but there's times where you need the other levels of government to switch things. So, Greg, do you want
Yes.
to? We're going to do a little nerdy education piece because
We're
this
gonna
is just
nerd
a
out
good.
here a little bit.
So you do the sharing nerdy thing on the three branches of government that you would have learned in your political studies 110 class in university. But if you haven't, we're going to do a little teaching lesson here for you.
Yeah, this is pure just like I did this all I learned this all on my own because I never went to
Oh, I
I
remember
never
learning
did
this
poli
stuff.
sci.
Yeah, I did the poli sci thing, and I remember this was like in the textbooks, and we had to do tests on it, and so it's fun. It's not hard. It's not a hard concept to grasp, really, but it's
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 not at
important
all.
because it's like this is always the rhetoric of people. It's like judicial takeover and whatever else. And actually, there's a good Trudeau context that I'll bring up here shortly too. So
Yeah.
go
So
ahead with the
just a
education.
general overview of how Canada's government works. At the very, very top, or you could imagine it sort of the other way around, where the trunk of the government is the monarch. In
Right.
this case, the King, King Charles III. He has all of the power and authority vested in him, but as a constitutional monarch, he can't use it himself. He has to grant the powers to a politician to form a government in his name, which he does, like which is how like what do we do with elections and everything. And in Canada, you do not vote for the prime minister. He is the prime minister is the head of government. So you elect your local MP, then your MP goes to Parliament, and Parliament elects the prime minister. That process still does technically formally take place, but because everyone knows exactly how it works, you don't have like that formal process where there's a moment where you see Parliament deliberating and then finally electing the prime minister. It's just done by fiat when the party with the most seats wins. In America, the corollary in America is when all after you have got your elections done and Congress goes back to sit. And then they all vote on the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is the head of government, so to speak, in America, although he doesn't have nearly as much power as our
Right.
head of government. And
Yeah.
the president is both. This is where America and Canada differ. Um, the president is both the head of government and the head of state. He's both those things in one. Whereas here, the prime minister is the head of government and the king is the head of state. And the idea being and I think I said this before already, the head of state takes away the sort of fame and autocratic tendencies that come with being at the top of the pile and places it within a person who can't use it for his own gain. They can only use it to benefit the state. And so yeah, we have three branches. We got the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Under the executive branch, you've got the prime minister and his cabinet. Under the legislative branch, you've got Senate, House of Commons, and it doesn't say so on here, but within the House of Commons, there's also the committees. The committees that are
Right.
formed within the House of Commons from the various parliamentarians also have quite a bit of power themselves. They can set precedent. They inform how policies work and all that kind of stuff. And then over on the other side, you got the judicial branch, the head of which is the Supreme Court of Canada, and then all the various lower courts. You've got lower federal and lower provincial courts
Mhm.
as well. So
So and
that's basic. Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead, Dave.
So this is great. Like that's a very good overview. Thank you, Greg. And then what you're supposed to do is these branches uh have checks and balances between them. So
Correct.
one
Yes.
branch doesn't get too powerful and crazy. And so like the executive branch of government appoints the judicial branch, and then the legislative branch is elected, right? Which actually
Yes.
builds your executive branch as well. But they all have various powers, right? So like the
Yes.
legislative branch, that's question period. That's opposition parties making sure the executive branch isn't going crazy, and then eventually can
Yes.
kick them out in an election. And the judicial branch is like kind of watching everything, and that's a simplified version of it, but it's a check and a balance on all of that. And the Canadian context that's similar to the American one that we just had with the tariff situation is when the Alberta government challenged the constitutionality of, I think
Yes.
was it the carbon tax or was it the emissions cap?
Well, they did both. The carbon tax, they lost
Right,
the carbon tax. The other
right.
one was Bill C-69.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
And
the court said this is an unconstitutional law of
right.
government. You need to fix this, and they've yet to do that.
Right. So this is where it's weird. Is like Trump could just continue doing what he's doing, even though it's like it's unconstitutional. But it's like it's I don't really know what the teeth are if the judiciary says don't do this, but the executive says we're doing it anyways because they still kind of control everything, right? Unless the legislative branch can shut them down or kick them out or whatever. So,
Yeah, I guess you could. What would happen is, and what I imagine will happen if Trump continues, there'll be lawsuits.
right. So,
Someone or like there'll be a class action lawsuit against the federal government.
right, right. So like, they have power and they don't have power. Like, still, most of the power is all in the executive branches of government
Yes.
here. And if I can share my screen for a sec, I'll
Yeah.
show
Here,
you
let me stop mine here.
the American version of this is very, very similar. I found this little thing. So three branches of government. So again, legislative, executive, judicial, and they have instead of a monarch, they have a constitution that oversees all these things. Is how they look at it. Now we have a
Lame.
constitution. Lame. Greg's like, I love the
They swear
monarchy.
allegiance to it. Imagine swearing allegiance to a piece of paper. Like
Yeah,
lame,
lame,
guys. You
super
got to get a
lame.
person, a person, a guy, or
Even though
something
we
to.
technically kind of do that too, is our constitution as well. But whatever. So same thing, right? A lot of the systems work differently, but it's the same idea. So the judicial branch basically told the executive branch, which is Trump, to saying you did this wrong, and you have to, in order to do the thing you're supposed to do, you got to go to Congress, so the
Yeah.
legislative branch, to figure that out. So we just want to explain that to people. We don't have to go deeper into it, but it's just that's how it's supposed to work. And the checks, like basically, people are like the founders would be rolling over in their grave if they, thought the president could be doing that. Told you can't do these things for America, and it's like no, the founders would probably say, yeah, you can do it, just go to Congress. That's
Yeah.
that's fine. So like
Yeah.
make sure Congress is on side first before you do it. And again, it slows things down, which people hate, but these systems have worked very well. Like the richest countries in the world have this type of structure because it leads to it prevents corruption in many ways and has good checks and balances. So presidents and the executive branch, they don't get out of control. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens in the Trump situation here, how he responds to all this. One funny thing about Trump too is the taco thing. Have you heard that? What's brought up?
Taco. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the name of what is it?
Yeah.
The name of the act or whatever that he
No,
signed?
no, no. It's Trump. With Trump, it's always taco. Trump always chickens out.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did
So he
hear
was
that.
he was asked about that yesterday and like lost his mind on a bunch of reporters, which I thought was hilarious. Like,
He's gonna like destroy the world now because of
oh
that
yeah, he's just
journalist.
like he's gonna burn that journalist to the ground. Like, his
Yeah.
fights against Harvard or whatever. They pick all these fights and like go crazy against people. It's funny. So like I guarantee now it's like that reporter is like the whole Trump team is going to try to destroy that reporter.
Yeah.
Harvard, they hate them. I don't even know why they hate Harvard so much. I could look into that more. And then like now the judiciary, it's like that judge is like they're gonna make his life a living hell, I think
Yeah.
that's the next step. So anyways, that's I think we should move on, but that was an interesting story.
If I can give one more
Please.
educational tidbit on the way this works. As you said in the American system, normally if once the judiciary nullifies an action of the executive branch, it's nullified. Everyone from that point is to treat that legislation as nullified.
Mm.
We'll see if Trump just signs another executive order to say whatever, I can do this anyway, which theoretically I
He
guess he
probably could.
can.
He probably
Kind
could.
of, sort of. There's no like there is no king above him to tell him like
Yeah.
no, you can't do that to dissolve his actions, which is basically what the king
Yeah.
does. But in our system, in the Westminster parliamentary system, Parliament historically has reigned supreme. And
Right.
so in a lot of people have heard about Section 33. Oh no, that's the Bill of Rights. Never mind. That's much better. Diefenbaker's Bill of Rights, much better than Trudeau Senior's Constitution. But when Trudeau Senior repatriated the Constitution in 1982, if I'm getting my
Yep.
history
82.
right,
Yep.
he included, and I think it was smart to include, despite the fact that I disagree mildly with the way that he went about doing that. But he included Section 33, which is the notwithstanding clause. And basically, what that does is it gives Parliament the ultimate backstop in authority. So and I think, frankly, we're probably going to end up seeing a lot more prime ministers use this and premiers as well. We've seen Doug Ford
Yep.
use it, and Quebec has used it quite a bit. Basically, what it does is it says like, yes, this rule notwithstanding, we're going to continue going. You just write it into your legislation so that it can bypass the courts. Now it has there's an expiry period on it, and you have to re-up it, and blah blah blah. There's all sorts of other tidbits that I won't
This
get
is
into.
getting too nerdy for me, Greg.
I'm getting too nerdy. I'm going to
you
stop there.
you're losing me, so you're definitely losing the audience.
But the point
I'm not
being,
that smart.
Parliament reigns supreme, so Parliament can theoretically override the judiciary in Canada.
Right.
Whereas in America, theoretically, it's not supposed to be able to do that. So we'll see how
Right.
this plays out.
Well, and this would be my last thought on it, but like at the end of the day, this is all just sort of general agreements amongst people.
Yeah,
Like it's like we have all these systems and documents and whatever, but like if all the people in the country said we don't want to do this anymore, we wouldn't do it anymore. Like we would
yeah.
basically say we're just not following those rules
They're
anymore.
not laws of physics or anything. They're
No, yeah.
human conventions. Yeah,
Yeah, they're human convention. And like, what is a convention, Greg? Do you know that? I don't know what the nerdy definition of but it's just like the general agreement among people. Like all the stuff that happens in Parliament, most of it is not like a written law. It's like it's a convention. It's just this is the way we do it, and we respect the way it's done here, and so we're going to do it this way.
yeah.
And
It
and so
comes from the same word that convent comes from, where like rules
right,
for how like a rule
right,
for how a society, because convents are like where religious would go to live, most of the time secluded from larger society, and
right,
they would
right,
have their laws and their rules that governed how they operated. And so we come to, like, in the modern context, we call them conventions, and so
right.
they're just the sort of the rules that we all live by.
Yeah. And like I like that stuff. Like for me, I'm a big person of like we need foundations and truth and traditions and like that's a valuable thing. Like if there's anything
Yeah,
I'm not Catholic, I'm Protestant, but it's like if there's anything I really like out of the Catholic faith, it's their adherence to good traditions that lead to good things. So Protestants have that too, but I like how Catholics do it. I don't like some things and I like other things, but whatever.
yeah,
So anyways, that's why a lot of religious people are conservative, to be honest, is because
yeah.
we think foundations and truth are important. And we might call them something a little different in a government context, but like we like prime ministers that uphold our values and our traditions and things that have worked for a long time. Don't screw with them. Like if it's not
Yeah.
broke, if not like stick with things that have worked well for a long time. That's where social conservative almost comes from in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's like this has worked well for us for 500 years. Why are we changing it all of a
Yeah.
sudden?
Well,
They don't like that.
the first Parliament of England began in a church.
Right. Yeah.
That's where they began. The rules were formed by those same sort of Christian principles. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of this stuff is like very Christian religious kind of backgrounds in lots of different ways. And it seems to be people that have a faith are attracted to politics a lot of the time, or people that have faith in a very strong ideology are attracted to. And so it's the way people kind of get involved in these things. If they care about that stuff, then they tend to care about politics and get involved. So no, nothing wrong with that. But
Yep.
we went almost too deep on this, Greg. We went like we dissected some stuff here, which is good. So
We like barely scratched the surface. We just did the overview.
I thought we went way deeper than we typically do, anyways.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
So,
Shall we jump into our sin bins now?
sin
On our
minute
stick
up,
taps? All
sin
right.
minute up.
The sin bin for the second, well, maybe not second time in as many episodes, but for the second time, Sam Bennett, you
Oh,
dirty old rat.
frickin' Sam Bennett. He's the real rat, and the problem is he's a Canadian, and he helped us win four nations, and so I kind of like that. But if you recall, he concussed our baby boy,
Oh,
Anthony Stolars, and then
my beautiful baby
Joseph
boy.
Wall wasn't as good. Like I love Jay Wall,
He was our
but
wonder wall.
he was our yeah. After all, you're my wonder wall. Uh, but Stolars was kind of better, and I think he was cooking so good. So it makes me sad. And then you see this last night, Florida Panthers,
Yeah.
almost swept the Carolina Hurricanes, but they're in the Stanley Cup final again with all these rats. This is what he does, almost the exact same thing. You can't see it if you're not on YouTube, but you can hear it. So, well,
Good patience by Anderson, and then Bennett tries to land on him and kind of graze
Yeah.
the elbow across the back of his mask. And this shot that comes in, watch the elbow right there. And
Oh, good.
remember what happened with Stallars in the Toronto
Whack him.
series.
yeah, they referenced it.
It doesn't seem like much, but it could do some damage. And not happy was Anderson. He took a pretty good shot at him with his blocker
Damn.
right there.
Yeah, so good on Freddie Anderson, former Toronto Maple
Yeah.
Leaf, for
Good.
blockering him to the face. But it's like it doesn't look that bad, but that's what Bennett's so good at in a very evil, ratty way of doing those things. So it's kind of like those politicians that they jab they got the really good jabs in on people, and it's kind of greasy and dirty, but it does work.
It
Sam
does,
Bennett's
yeah.
the ultimate rat, I think. Like Brad Marchand, he's almost like a lovable rat,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Like he
I
doesn't.
don't have the same like disgust toward,
No,
like,
no,
I
no.
don't have that. I'm just like, oh, Brad Marchand, oh, you're so good, and I wish you were on my team. Like,
Well,
arr.
because Brad Marchand doesn't cheap shot people. in my
No.
opinion.
He'll lick your
Like
face for some
he
reason,
licks
but
you and annoys you, and he dives a lot, all that stuff.
yeah.
But Sam Bennett is like literally trying to end your career in
Yeah.
the greasiest way possible. And so I don't like that. I'll prefer a Brad Marchand rat over a Sam Bennett rat, even though Brad Marchand typically toasts the Leafs every year.
Yeah.
Like he's not on the Boston Bruins anymore, and he's
We
still
couldn't get
toasting.
away. Yeah,
We
we
couldn't
couldn't
get
get
away
away.
from him. Arch nemesis. So there's your
Uh,
sin bin, Sam Bennett. And is he going to sign with the Leafs next year? He's a free agent.
yeah, we'll
I
see.
doubt it. I doubt.
Yeah.
Why would he leave Florida? Holy cow. They
Yeah.
they go to a Stanley Cup final every year, pretty much at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're in like no tax, your weather's beautiful. It's like, for sure I want to come to Toronto. Great.
Yeah. The
That
most
sounds
like
awesome.
the most like punishing sports media landscape in the entire
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
like world, North American world. Like, yeah, I'll go live there. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a great time. I will say this though. I'm going to reject the premise of your statement of it's the hardest media world. There's a lot of attention, but the media, they don't actually ask hard questions. Like like, cause I
Fair.
follow like hockey all over the place. The Toronto media, they're like, they like throw it up because the team gets very mad if you ask them hard questions. And so they're like,
Yeah.
we're just not giving you access anymore, which has happened over the Shanna plan. He's really
Yeah.
restricted access to the players, which I think is going to change a bit. But it's like
Yes.
they get so little from these players that everything's dissected like a million times over. I think it would actually be better if the Leafs put out their players and their coaches more often because there'd be less dissection and people like
Yeah.
it's kind of like an information vacuum almost, right? Where again, this is hey, great sports analogy. If you as a leader, there's a crisis happening and you don't give any information, well then people just make up the information and bad
Yeah.
actors will give
Yeah.
you that
They will
information.
fill that void. Yeah.
They fill the void. So that I think that's what's happened in Toronto and why there's more pressure is because no one says anything. And so it's like they're insinuating, oh, Mitch Marner thinks this and blah 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 and the coach thinks this about this guy. And it's like, no, you should just do stuff. You should talk to more like you should
Yeah.
engage with fans more and have fun with it rather than uh make it a horrible media environment. So anyways, that was my 2 cents on that one.
All right. My
It's
other
still
my
there.
other my other sin bin is the Parti Quebecois, who, while the king was giving his throne speech, the Parti Quebecois signed a memorandum that they would disconnect the connection between Canada and Canada will no longer have a connection, or Quebec, sorry, Quebec will no longer have a connection to the British monarchy. Okay, first of all, losers, Canada doesn't have a
Losers.
connection with the British monarchy. We have our own Canadian crown. I know that's a bit pedantic, but it's a fact. And the king has a Canadian passport and has de facto Canadian citizenship. The queen did as well, and all like and I believe their children do as well. Like the
Cool.
Prince of
I didn't
Wales,
know
I
that.
believe and they also have Canadian citizenship. They're not foreigners. They're not a foreign. Yes, they live elsewhere, but so did a lot of Canadians. Lots of
Hmm.
Canadians still snowbirds live in Florida for half the year. Lots of expats live elsewhere, and they're still Canadian. You can live elsewhere
Mhm.
and still be Canadian. And the other thing is like that's just not going to happen. Like they keep doing this thing, these shows of force shows of force. They're not even force. Shows of whatever disdain for
It's
our monarchical
symbolic
history.
gestures of anger against Canada. I don't know,
And
whatever you
they're
want to
just
call
such loser maneuver. Like it's never going to change anything. Like to actually get rid of the monarchy would require an intense amount of work that it just even for a lot of like soft anti-monarchists just like isn't worth the effort.
it.
It's just not. And so you guys are total losers, huge losers. Okay, it's not just me saying that. A lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, in the
This
sin
has
bin
to
you
be
go.
your favorite episode because you've got to talk about the monarchy like for several
Yeah.
minutes today. So, like, stick tap to Greg for all of his great monarchy uh, insights here. Like, I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know they had citizenship and their kids did, and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. So, good. We had nerdy branches of government stuff and nerdy monarchy talk. A lot of it. So good
Yeah,
stuff.
you're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome, everybody who was definitely, you guys were all hungering, like, oh, I need to know. I need to know.
I already did my early stick tap for Wob Canoe, so you do your stick tap that you had.
All right, I've got two. First goes to Anthony Kosh, former guest on this show. He wrote a
Mhm.
great article in the National Post. I highly recommend you go all and read it. It's about elite, and how conservatives should value elitism, but in the old school sense, where you had noblesse oblige and a moral backbone to be a good elite who gave back to your culture and your society, which is basically what the monarchy is. Like I said, it vests all the power and authority in that person, and they can't use it for their own political gain. They have to use it for the betterment of their country, and that's what lords and ladies and all that stuff in the peerage system was for in the UK, and lots of other European countries had the same thing. And so, it too can be abused, sure, but generally speaking, it is a well-used system, and we should re-embrace it and hold our elites to a high standard.
Yeah.
And then second shout out is to Ben Woodfinden, who's actually done quite a good job. He was Pierre's director of communications, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And he wrote a really good a piece on the weird and quirky monarchy that we have, but how like that's a good thing. And it sets us apart from other countries. So I thought that was a really good article. So shout out to him as well.
Right on. Yeah, good guys. Good guys for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess is that it for today?
I think that's it. I got nothing else on my docket.
Well, fun podcast, Greg. Appreciate it.
You as
And
well. Thank you.
all the folks, if you like nerdy monarchy talk, branches of government talk, I don't know, you got to subscribe because there's clearly going to be more.
This is the only place you're going to get it.
Yeah, it is a unique podcast we got going on here. So anyways, a lot of fun, Greg. Thank you for your insights, and thanks for everybody for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed it and learned some stuff at the same time. And hey, get involved in politics, have an influence, make a difference. Well, that's maybe another side of it that I want to promote is we want you to do something to advocate for the country in whatever unique way. And we're going to give you more guests and ideas of how to do that shortly here. So stay tuned for it.
Like and subscribe and share and tell your family and friends and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks, Greg.
God save the king.
God save the king.
Cheers, everybody.